Wait a minute. Roofman, the crime caper, is actually a Christmas movie? Welcome back to Glenn Hates Everything. I'm Glenn, and apparently I hate everything. Let's find out. So, Derek Chanfrance, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a filmmaker that I have not considered accessible. I found his films cinematic, certainly has a voice, but I found them a little pretentious. We're talking about films like Blue Valentine and A Place Beyond the Pines. Films that I can't say I enjoyed, but I admired, but not films that I really want to revisit. They didn't make me feel much. I just kind of went, okay, this is cool cinematic style. Consider my surprise, though, when I saw his new film, Roofman, which he co-wrote with Kurt Gunn, and discovering that it's a warm-hearted Christmas movie, actually. It's a crime caper that is much more sentimental than I expected and much more accessible than any of Derek's prior films. It stars Channing Tatum, and this is a true story. He plays Jeffrey Montgomery, who in the early 2000s committed crimes. He was a robber. He had broken in through the rooftop of dozens of places like McDonald's and robbed them. And he was known for being very gentle and kind. He'd put the employees in the freezer, but he'd give them coats, for example. And he was eventually caught, went to prison for years, and escaped. And upon his escape in the early 2000s in North Carolina, he hid out in a Toys R Us for quite a long time. And he'd, subsist on M&Ms and baby food. And he'd entertain himself watching DVDs, and he'd set up surveillance systems all over so he could monitor what's going on during the day. He'd exercise at night by riding a bicycle around. And Channing Tatum brings, and I hate using this word because I've used it many times, but he brings a real soulfulness to this part. And there was so much communicated in glances. The way he looks at an employee named Lee, played by Kirsten Dunst, beautifully. He clearly falls for her, and just the way he looks at her after he meets her is the heart of the film. Those glances mean everything, because you see this other side to this guy who's kind of a small-time thief. He's a guy who makes a lot of bad mistakes. He's got a big heart, but he just can't stay cooped up in this Toys R Us every day, so he eventually ventures out and attends a church where that Toys R Us employee Lee goes and sings in the choir, and nobody recognizes him because kind of the whole point of the movie is that news cycles come and go, and that he might be a fugitive, but everyone's moved on, and so nobody suspects that this guy who's pretending to be a government agent is actually the guy that they've been on the lookout for quite some time. So it's kind of a rom-com, kind of a caper. The manager of the Toys R Us is played by Peter Dinklage, and it's really fun to see him in this role because he's just an out-and-out asshole. And, he's played assholes before, like on Game of Thrones. He was kind of an asshole. But he does this so beautifully because he's just a guy who only cares about the bottom line, doesn't care about his employees wanting any time off. He just wants everybody to work, and doesn't want anything to get in the way. And he's such a fantastic jerk. Jeffrey has a pal played by Lakeith Stanfield, and his girlfriend played by Juno Temple, who are kind of nefarious, and they can help get fake passports and things like that. They run kind of a scheme, and they're fun to watch throughout the film because Lakeith's character really knows Jeffrey. He knows everything about him, whereas no one else in the film seems to. He's this guy who's undercover, and he's wearing, very 90s shorts and socks and sneakers and a Sex Wax t-shirt, which is pretty funny to watch the whole time. And he's just, kind of a screw-up. Channing Tatum brings so much to this part. It's, I think, his best performance to date. It's not flashy, but it's controlled, very grounded, very humane. And apparently that is what Jeffrey Montgomery is like. And so it's wonderful to watch. The film can be very funny, but also very heartbreaking at the same time. And you are rooting for him, even though you know he's doing bad things. And, that's a fine line. I was reminded a little bit of Dog Day Afternoon, that classic with Al Pacino, who's robbing a bank, but he's doing it for a good reason. And he's very kind to the people who he's holding captive. There's some really fun sequences involving Channing Tatum taking a shower. He has really wonderful interactions with people at the church. One in particular where he encounters a woman at the church who used to be in law enforcement. So there's a little bit of a danger zone going on there. And it's just a pleasure to watch this film. But I was really struck by how kind of mushy and sentimental it was. I was expecting something a little more hard-edged, and that's okay. They're telling the story that they're meaning to tell, and that works just fine. It's just, this isn't the director I expected that from. And I can easily see a version of this where it is distant and it's very clipped, and it wouldn't be as humanistic and as fun to watch, I suspect. But I hope you go see it. I think this is one of the better films of the year. It's, kind of a Hallmark cardy kind of film at times, but it works, and you walk away really feeling for somebody who just can't quite do things right until he goes on this journey to try to figure out what his real purpose is in life. And it's not what you'd expect. And I really found that memorable and interesting, and it's quite a worthy film. Check it out. Leave a comment below if you do see it. I'd love to hear your opinion on this one, because it's accessible and yet interesting all at the same time. That's it for now. See you next time.